Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Gromiko. I'm from InterNACHI, and this is an InterNACHI webinar. This is a free, live, online webinar. And just about every week, we have a special guest to talk about something that's related to the home inspection industry. And today, it's about HOAs. Now, when I was a home inspector, I remember my first HOA inspection. There was about 300 townhomes, and they hired our company to go in and do a random sampling of all of the roofs. Just to know what is actually going on instead of taking a roofer at their word. So we went in, spent all day, did a random sampling of the roof. The roof was actually in good shape and the roofer was telling the truth to the HOA. So that's one of the cool things about inspecting an HOA. There are many other topics that we're going to talk about today with our special guest, and you can feel free, if you're attending the live webinar, to ask questions during the presentation, afterwards, and we'll go for about a half an hour or so. So feel free to learn about this important topic related to home inspection industry. And I want to thank you all for attending. Why don't you just take it away and tell us what we're going to talk about.
Thank you, Ben. Hi, everyone. My name is Vishrut. I am the CEO and co-founder of InspectHOA. My goal today is to kind of give you an overview of HOAs and also spend a little bit of time talking about what are some of the opportunities for you there. I think Ben mentioned a few things. So I'd love to get into both of those areas. So just quickly, the agenda is, I want to spend a few minutes talking about what is it that we do, give you an overview of HOAs, and spend a little bit of time talking about how do you review an HOA, either on behalf of your clients or if you're buying a property within an HOA. And then last topic would be to discuss what are some of the opportunities to grow your business within this space. So let me start with a few things about my company, InspectHOA. We help home buyers and investors in all of their HOA dealings. What does that mean? It means that for our clients who are buying hundreds of homes every month, we help them not only with the transactions or gathering HOA information for them, we also help review the HOA. And really the goal there is to make sure that the HOA is in good financial and operational health, and it's going to be a good investment for our clients. To our knowledge, we have the largest database on HOAs, so about 70,000 HOAs. For about 70,000 HOAs, we have information on their financials, bylaws, and all of these other things. We've helped with over 10,000 transactions. Our end goal is to bring efficiency, technology, and transparency to anybody dealing with HOAs. And as you can imagine, I'm sure you've come across HOAs where they're still using emails, money orders, and sort of faxes. And we really want to change that. And we want to lower cost for HOAs, make the processes more efficient, and generally just improve the communities that they manage. So I want to share some interesting stats about HOAs. It's the thing, when I started working in this space, the thing that really sort of struck me was how large this space is. So there are about 350,000 HOAs in the country. 100 million people live in the HOA. So, about a third of the population within the US lives in HOA managed properties. This was fairly surprising to me when I found out, a couple of years ago. HOAs collect about $100 billion in annual fees, and that's how much typically they're spending. So again, big number. So not only is the space big, but it's also a growing space. So 73% of new construction is within an HOA. So really, and this is pretty much a national phenomenon. It's not limited to a few states. HOAs are in most major states. They tend to there tends to be more HOAs in urban centers, but in other places like Texas, there are HOAs, lots and lots of HOAs in suburbs as well. Okay, so the next thing I want to discuss is what are HOAs? Why do they exist? And really there's three simple reasons. The first one is that they are responsible for managing the common areas and the shared infrastructure. So, whether it's a swimming pool or the gym, or if it's a condo building, then the actual structure of the building is something that the HOA is responsible for. They enforce rules and regulations, right? So each HOA has a legal mandate by which they can enforce rules. And I'm sure you've heard of stories where, HOAs will go a little crazy and enforce sort of some unreasonable rules. And then the third, but the most important piece of it is HOAs are supposed to increase property values for their residents. Really, that's the key reason why they exist. They should be improving property value for the residents. Typically, the way the HOAs are structured are that there is a board of directors that's voted in by the residents, and then there's a property manager. The property manager is hired by the board of managers to manage the property. About 20 to 30% of HOAs are self-managed. So those are the ones where the board of directors acts as a property manager and they actually manage the property themselves. And I think there are some subtle differences, but we can get into those later. So the next question is, when you're buying or when your clients are buying into a HOA managed property, what are they actually buying, right? So they're buying a property which you're going to help inspect, and you're going to kind of look at all of the physical aspects of the property, but they're also investing in a corporation. This HOA is essentially a corporation. So just like if you were to buy stock in a company, you're going to be trying to understand, the company, the corporation behind that stock. Similarly, it's important for buyers to understand the HOA that's managing the property. So how do you actually do that? How do you review an HOA? What are the right questions to ask? So the way we do it is we break this up into two pieces. One is the financial part of it, and the other is the operational part of this. And just to step back, is the reason why I want to go over how to review an HOA is because I think the opportunity for you guys is to be able to answer questions for your clients and to perhaps even offer an HOA review to your clients. So when you're doing a home inspection, you can provide this as an add-on service. And so that's why I want to provide here is a high-level framework of how do you look at an HOA without getting into too much detail, because that's going to take up a lot more time. So really, again, two important things: financial health, operational health. What is it about the financial health that you should be looking at? The most important thing, in my mind, is the reserves of that HOA. So reserves, if you don't know, are basically a sort of an account where the HOA should be putting sufficient money for repairing the building, for maintaining the building in the future. Recently in the news, you may have heard of this building in Miami where part of the structure collapsed, unfortunately killing many of the residents. So if you paid attention to that, the story behind that unfortunate event was that the HOA board didn't put away sufficient reserves, and they had been trying to raise more money for the reserve fund. Unfortunately, the board wasn't able to convince the residents, and there was a lot of fighting between the board and the residents. The end result, which was extremely unfortunate, was that the building never got the repairs that it needed. And in this extreme case, it was so bad that the structure collapsed. But really, it's, you can point fingers in different directions, but the key reason was that there was financial mismanagement from the beginning. So that's about the reserves. The other part of it is expenses. So the question, really the deeper question is the HOA spending well? how can you answer that question? The way we do it is we compare the HOA's budget to the neighborhood to see how does it compare to all of the HOAs in their neighborhood. Trying to compare apples to apples. And the third thing is you want to look for evidence of fraud. So there are many ways to do this. There are financial measures like balance sheet and income statement measures that indicate risk of fraud. But there are also other things that simpler things like how often has the HOA treasurer changed over the last few years. There's a lot of change. If the treasurer is resigning every year, that's a big red flag. So really, from a financial health standpoint, these are some of the important things. And I'll also show you some of the things that we've done and that we do currently and leave links to it so you can kind of dig into it. On the operational side, the few questions that you can ask is, are there open litigations? So litigations typically can be problematic, right? If the HOA is suing the builder, you want to know, you want to understand this. Are there egregious bylaws? So because we've looked at so many HOAs, we've seen all kinds of strange bylaws, like things like bird watching is not allowed, or children cannot play in the park, right? Like, so this is a very subjective thing. There's actually a whole Reddit, a subreddit that where people are just complaining about their HOAs, and it's in the least it's a fun place, it's a fun read, but again, it's a subjective thing. You may be comfortable with some of these bylaws, you may not be, but it's important to understand them. The third thing is fine history. So if you see that the HOA has a history of fining residents, that's typically a big red flag. Like, that just tells you that the HOA isn't working, doesn't have a good relationship with the residents. The HOA typically place a bunch of restrictions on the residents, but it seems that the leasing restriction is an important one. People want to know if you can rent out your place, if you can Airbnb. So that's something to consider. And then the last thing, and there are many things, and again, you can come to our website and see all of the things we do. But foreclosures is an important one. So if you see a lot of foreclosures, that's something you want to consider. Of course, it depends on the community. It also depends on the time. Like throughout COVID, we've seen a lot of foreclosures. That's okay. People, I think those things will go away. But again, these are some of the main questions you should be asking. Okay, so the takeaway when you're looking at a HOA, when you're reviewing an HOA, is really three things you should try to answer. And some of the things I mentioned before should help you answer these questions. You want to know how much your HOA dues are going to increase over time. People typically assume HOA dues will be flat. That's not the case. They will increase over time. The second thing is you want to understand if the HOA is spending efficiently. I lived in an HOA building where the manager would, every time I would meet the manager, she would just say that, I am the best at negotiating contracts. And she might be, but it's something you want to figure out and try to get some information if you can. And then the third thing is a very subjective thing, but are the rules and regulations reasonable? Are they reasonable to you? Like one of the things that people are always surprised by is that many HOAs will have ask you to provide a spare key to your home to them. And so, that you may be okay with that. You may not be okay with that, but you should know this, or at least your clients should know this before investing in that property. Okay. So what are some of the opportunities for home inspectors in this space, and how can you grow your business? So I think Ben mentioned one of them at the beginning. So you can help HOAs. HOAs have a budget. They're going to spend money in maintaining the building and checking things. So that's one area. And the other one is you can help your home buyer customers who you're already working with. You're doing a home inspection for them. And you can sort of provide add-on services there. So in terms of HOAs, when we work with HOAs, a lot of them will ask us like for recommendations on, hey, do you know anybody who provides a roof inspection? You know, roofs are important because typically roofs and elevators are one of the more costlier repair items for HOAs. So they're typically doing at least an annual roof inspection. Many HOAs also budget a walk around where you walk around and check for structural issues, like if it's a townhouse community or even a single family community where they have common areas. And then the third thing is reserve study analysis. So the goal there is that the HOAs want to understand how much money they should be putting aside, and you can help them and you can tell them like, hey, look, the cost of repaving your streets is going to be X dollars, or the the cost of redoing your roofs is going to be Y dollars, and you can provide sort of consulting there. InspectHOA, my company, is building a platform where HOA board members can sort of come and look for and pay for these services. So if you're interested, I will leave my email at the end, and once our platform is launched, I am happy to reach out to you and add you to our platform. But really, what I've seen here is home inspectors running marketing and ad campaigns to board members. So believe it or not, a lot of the board members are sort of volunteers. They don't really make any money on running the communities, and they're really looking for help. And it's hard for them to find the right people. So if you are marketing directly to them, and I believe you can go online and buy sort of HOA board member mailing lists, so you can target them directly and send some campaigning, some marketing materials to them. You'll be surprised at how many board members are looking for these services and having a hard time finding good contractors to provide these types of services. The second aspect is home buyers. So, when you're working with home buyers and inspecting their condos or townhouse homes, if there's an HOA, you could potentially provide a HOA review service. You could keep it very simple. Some of our home inspectors will provide a very simple sort of a one-pager summary of the HOA, where they do, where they'll just pick up the phone, call the HOA, get answers to a few questions, like some of the things that I mentioned earlier, and then provide that as an add-on summary to their home buyers. And it's really a way to differentiate your service, and also really truly to help the home buyer. Simple things like, what is the pet policy? What is the move-in fee? You'd be surprised that most people, they don't find out answers to these questions until after they have actually purchased the place. So if you can provide them this information during the home inspection phase, I think it's very valuable to them. Obviously, I'm going to also try to market ourselves. We provide a white label service for HOA reviews, where our home inspector clients will order through us, and on our report we'll say prepared for XYZ home inspector. So if you're interested to partner with us, please shoot me an email. I'm happy to describe what we do. This is what our HOA review service looks like. So our goal is to make it easy for our end consumers to understand an HOA. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but we can show you what the HOA is spending, how does it compare to neighborhood. We can show you reserve levels. We also provide an HOA score. So really, again, trying to make it easy for the home buyer to understand what they're getting into. I have also left a link for an actual review that we've done, so you can play with it if that's interesting. So I think that is pretty much all I have. Happy to take any questions or any feedback. I'm going to leave my email up here. Again, as I mentioned, we're going to be launching a platform where board members can reach out to contractors, home inspectors for all of their requirements. So if you're interested, shoot me an email, or just feedback for this call. Hopefully it was useful. Hopefully it's worth your time, and happy to take any questions.
For sure. So you have a few minutes for some questions? I see a couple.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's Vishrut?
Vishrut, yeah.
Vishrut. Lawrence says, my condo burned due to electrical wiring from the 1960s. So electrical wiring is hard to find, but if you're in an older home, I'm not sure how far deep an HOA goes. Like, are they in charge of these things, electrical wiring and systems and components deep inside the home?
Yeah, so it really depends. So if it's a condo, then most likely, and you really have to get into the legal language, the incorporation, the documents of incorporation of the HOA. But typically what we see is if it's a condo, the internal wiring, the plumbing is the responsibility of the HOA. But again, that's something you really, perhaps if you really have to look into it, you should probably hire an HOA attorney and get into that. But it very well could be the HOA's responsibility, and it could be negligence on their part if they haven't, if they knew that they have old wiring and they haven't repaired it. But these things are not uncommon. People are always surprised, but they are not uncommon. We see them all the time.
Yep. Kayla asks or states, my realtor said that there was an HOA fee for road maintenance. Come to find out, after we bought it, there was a lot more than just road maintenance.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that this is really perhaps the #1 reason why we are even in business, is because our clients have been burned by things like this, right? And so in an ideal world, you should be provided this information well before you buy the place. Unfortunately, it's just nobody has collected this information, and it's hard for the realtors to get all of this. And so this is the point I was making earlier, is that if you can help your clients get some of this information, I think you'll find that they will be extremely grateful to you. There's a case where one of our clients was buying a home, and she had a cat for like 8-9 years. Obviously, in her words, the pet was literally family to her. And a few days before the closing is when we provided our review to her, and we identified that there are no pets allowed in that HOA. And so that really, she had to walk away from the deal. But unfortunately, just HOAs don't make enough of an effort to advertise or to sort of show their residents what are the rules and regulations. You end up getting hundreds of pages of legal documents that nobody has the time to read. And so these cases, again, happen much more often than you would expect, and it's unfortunate. Hopefully, the road fees and the other fees that they were collecting were being put to good use. So even though you didn't know about it, hopefully it was money being well spent.
Yep. I've had a lot of experiences with real estate agents, and they may say things like, since there's an HOA, there's really nothing to worry about or even consider because everything is taken care of. But I see that you're saying not every HOA has problems, but some do. And so you're asking inspectors to you're helping inspectors get educated in order to educate their clients, in order for their clients to maybe start asking questions, maybe even before they move in, maybe find the board members and about the health of the HOA.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Ben. Yeah, I think that you summarized it perfectly. And really, I mean, you may come across even questions like who's responsible for shared walls? And it really, really varies. It may be that there's a shared wall that the 2 units are responsible for, or it may be the HOA is responsible for. But again, unless you dig into it and you ask these questions and you educate your clients, it's just nobody will know until there's some event, and that's when then it's typically too late.
So I'm a home inspector. I live in a neighborhood, and outside my window, I can see another HOA. I'm in one, and right across the street is another one. Very different kind of things going on. So so if you're moving in somewhere like the street over, could be a very different HOA. And so that's something to consider as well. And a walk around for inspectors, well, I do that all the time because I can't stop. I'm an inspector all the time. And in our neighborhood, all the dryer exhaust vents are the same. They all have screens on them, and you can't have a screen on a dryer exhaust because it clogs up with lint and then it becomes a fire hazard. So we have many fire hazards in our neighborhood here, and they're all the same because in HOAs, sometimes all the structures are about the same, but sometimes not, but sometimes it's a large community of houses that are built by the same builder. And so all of those dryer vents are the same for the entire neighborhood. It's kind of interesting. That's what a walk around can do for your neighbors.
Yeah.
Eric says, how much is your service for clients?
Yeah, it's a good question, Eric. Typically, our HOA review service, our retail price is, I believe it's $169. But when we work with our home inspector partners, we typically offer a discount, and it's also a function of volume. So if you're interested, please shoot me an email, and happy to kind of go through our pricing. And
Doug asks, do you charge home inspectors a fee?
No, we do not. We have different sort of partnership opportunities. Typically, the end consumer would pay for our service. We do not charge anything to the home inspectors.
And Lawrence asks, well, how do you inspect common areas if you're hired by a buyer?
Yeah, it's a good question. We don't do a physical inspection, right? That's sort of your area of expertise. We provide more of a financial and operational analysis. The common area, it's interesting. I haven't seen any home buyers actually ask for a common area inspection. I imagine most of the HOAs would ask for that. But it's interesting to think about. I mean, we've thought about partnering with home inspectors to provide a complete review. So financial, operational, and also perhaps a walk around that you would do for the home buyer. Shoot me an email. I'd be interested to chat about and see what your thoughts are.
In our home inspection company, we had a policy that we inspected the home regardless of whether there was an HOA. So if someone said, well, you don't need to inspect that, it's covered by the HOA, we inspected it anyways.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, and you may uncover things that the HOA doesn't even know about, right? Like, so again, it's really important to know these things before the client buys, because once you buy, it's too late, right? Like, especially areas where there are lots and lots of old buildings. Like, I used to live in Stamford, Connecticut. And the average age of the building is 50 years. And so, most HOAs there just haven't collected sufficient reserves. As a function of that, the buildings have fairly significant wear and tear. And so if you can identify those things to your clients, I think they would find it quite valuable, rather than saying, don't worry, the HOA will take care of it, right? Like, that's perhaps not the best answer.
Yeah. Lawrence comments, if the home inspector doesn't pay for the service, the clients pay. So are we your salesman?
I prefer the term partners. I think, the reason we really like working with home inspectors is because we have similar goals, right? Like, we are trying to help the end consumer make a more informed decision. And I think you guys are experts in one aspect of it, and we are experts in another. And so I look at it as a partnership, but again, right? Like, you don't have to work with us. There are simple things that you can provide to your client, even if you decide, like, hey, I'm not looking for a partnership at this point. There are simple things you can provide as an add-on service, like. You can literally just pick up the phone and ask the HOAs 5-6 questions. And if you need help with forming this questionnaire, shoot me an email. I can send you some of the questions we ask, and you can just provide that service on your own. Obviously, more than happy if you partner with us. In either case, really, the goal is to help the home buyer and to make sure that they appreciate the value that you're providing, that they appreciate the value that we are providing.
Yep. As a home inspector, I like the idea of educating my clients and being a pass-through of information. So if I have an expert resource, that information passes through me. I look credible because I'm providing incredible amount of information that's relevant, and maybe educate my clients in a way that they haven't. Like, for example, I always reminded my clients in my certain areas of the free home energy audit that their utility company would provide. I didn't do energy audits, but I passed through that information. I didn't think of myself as a salesman, wasn't getting paid. I was just a pass through of really good information.
Exactly.
Let's see. Doug says it's the realtor's responsibility to perform HOA due diligence for home buyers and sellers, not home inspectors.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Unfortunately, it's really not true. I mean, you know, in rare cases it may be true, but also remember that the real estate agent isn't really even skilled for this job, right? Like they're not an accountant, they can't read the income statement balance sheet of the HOA. They're not lawyers, they can't read the bylaws and CC&Rs. So it's hard for them to do really a detailed due diligence. Also, you can imagine they're not incentivized, right? Like it's like saying, like, if I were to say that the real estate agent should help look at the structure of the building, they're not incentivized. They want to see the deal close, and you know, obviously there are lots and lots of good agents out there, but it's going to be hard for them to present their clients with information that is that may be negatively, you know, that may negatively impact the sale. We don't see that. We don't see agents really digging into due diligence, and that's why we exist, right? That's why we have home investors and home buyers using our service. Yeah, I don't know what else to add to that. I think just the incentives aren't in place for them to really do a deep dive into HOAs. Yeah.
Right. And you're all about the health of the HOA, reviewing the health of the HOA, just like home inspectors are into essentially reviewing the health of the home. You want to review the health of the HOA that my client is going into.
That's right.
Yeah, and I want to educate them so that they can make smart decisions about their future home. So, Vishrut, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you need to reach out to Vishrut, his email is right there. It's a little small. Why don't you say it so that people can absolutely read it and hear you?
Yeah, so apologies for the small text. My email is Vishrut, so V as in Victor, ISHRUT, Vishrut at InspectHOA.com. I don't know, Ben, if I can make this presentation available, I'm happy to do that as well. Or if not, you know, you can even just come to our website and find contact information there as well.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming and educating us about HOAs. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for attending. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.